Hi everybody, this is Tom reporting from the League of Legends off-season. Yeah, we're still waiting for the roster change to go through and for everything to start again, which will probably not happen until next year, unfortunately. But even though I have a League of Legends guest with me today, James Dash Patterson, obviously the LCS host, that's not something we're going to talk about today. First of all, though, Dash, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing quite good, man. It's getting dark very early in in my part of the world. I'm not sure if it's the same over there in LA.
It is. We have daylight savings time over
Yep.
here in the U.S., and so that happened. Well, right around when Worlds happened, and so
Right.
now it's dark by 5 p.m.
Yep.
You
Same
you eat
here.
dinner and then you look out the window and you go, well, maybe it's time for bed since it's
Yeah.
pitch black. So
Yeah.
for
At
sure,
six
it's been
o'clock, you look
it's
outside and think, well, take a shower and go to bed, and well, it's you still have quite some hours to go on your
exactly.
regular sleep schedule at least.
It's been an adjustment to say
Yeah,
the
I can
least.
imagine so. But it seems like you're holding up quite nicely. You've been very active, keeping up production and still doing things.
I have. I've been very lucky. 2020 has been a very interesting year for me
Hmm.
professionally. I was lucky enough to pick up an agent and get representation. From there, managed to secure a role at Venn, which has been a fantastic venture, all alongside my kind of traditional LCS and Worlds
Exactly.
broadcasting endeavors, and then little projects here and there. I was really lucky to get an opportunity to be a part of the Wild Rift launch event, which was a really cool experience.
Hmm.
Isolated to a single day, but lots of really cool people working on that project. Just yesterday, you're catching me in the morning
Yeah.
after a late night. Last night, I was hosting and casting the Red Bull solo queue 1v1 series.
Hmm.
So we had the U.S. finals last night. It was an epic best of seven finals that went to the final game and was decided by about 10 to 20 HP. It was pretty wild. Like it was a wild show last night. So yeah, no, I've been great. 2020 professionally has been really phenomenal for me. While personally, like for everybody, I think it's had its ups and downs and its fair
Exactly.
share of
Yeah, there've
struggles.
definitely
Yeah,
been peaks and let's call them challenges or speed bumps, maybe for
without a
everybody.
doubt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, as I said, we're not actually here to talk about League of Legends specifically, but more to learn more about you as a person. Because last year at the World's Finals in Paris, we met up. I think it was the day before the finals actually took place.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, in the stadium there in the hall, and we talked a lot about your acting. Which then was in an article form, and I'll link the article in the description below as well, so people who are interested can find it. Um, yeah, and it told me so much about who you were as a person, which I found very interesting because you spoke with so much passion about something that not a lot of people know you're very passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And back then I told you next time we're going to talk about running because during the talk you also said running was one of your big passions. And
You're a man of
well,
your word.
yeah,
You're a man of your word is what that
I,
means. No,
I don't forget about these things.
I will say I think I said it following that interview. That's one of the best interviews I've ever done. I had so much fun
Well, thank
talking.
you.
I mean, and I think what you talking about right now is why. It was just it's really great to have an opportunity to talk to somebody about something that you're truly passionate about and to have them be genuinely interested. So
Yeah,
I
I mean, like,
appreciate.
yeah, I also give you the credit there because you spoke with such passion, obviously, that I just kept wanting for more. And unfortunately, you had to go back to rehearsal for some worlds thing, like,
Exactly. And
man.
they ripped me away from the table.
Well, I guess that was kind of
Well,
important at
there's
the
no one to
time.
do that this time around,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So
Yeah. Well, yeah. You told me we could go on for as long as you wanted, so let's get into it then. Running is, as you said, one of your main passions as you grew up as well. How did you even get into running?
oof, oh lordy. Well, so I was always involved in sports from a very young age. So my parents, they threw me into soccer, or for you Europeans, football.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a number of years at a young age, like most people do.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an okay soccer player, maybe good at, like good would be the most positive word I would use to describe myself as a soccer player. But I think largely I was good because I was fast,
Mm-hmm.
not because I was actually good at soccer itself. And so this is all to say that you fast forward to about, I think it was like age 11, age 12, and a classmate of mine, her mother decided to put her on a club track team.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing so, asked her, this girl, Carly, she said, hey, is there anybody at your school who might, be interested in running track with you, or, pursuing this endeavor with you? And so she just said, oh, there's this kid, James. He's really fast. He might want to. And so she called my mom. Her mom called my mom, and she asked, hey, I'm going to take Carly down to try out for this team, in one of the local cities or towns in San Diego, if James is interested. My mom was like, sign him up, get him out of here, whatever you can do to get rid of some of the energy that this kid has. Sure. So I went with Carly and her mom to go to this quote unquote tryout where they had us run like a lap on the track. I mean, again, we were 11 years old. Mm-hmm. It was super, super, relaxed. And ultimately we got accepted, onto the team. And so I started running competitively, very strangely, prior to high school. I think for most kids, it's like junior high school is where they might get exposed to running as an actual sport. And I was exposed to it at a slightly earlier age. And I don't know why I liked it. To be honest, I'm not sure I really did. I've just always been a competitive person. So I tell people all the time, I'm like, I'm not convinced by really any runner who says they enjoy running.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure they're out there.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong. I have a love and a passion for running in a certain sense. But the actual act of running, it's not enjoyable. Are you kidding me? It's painful. It's hard. If you want to do it well, you have to push your body to, past its limit in order to continue to improve and to grow. And so I think what I loved is that I was good at it, if I'm being entirely honest. I think just knowing that I had some kind of natural ability, I was winning races or, placing well. You don't win every race. That's kind of one of the realities of track,
right?
Specifically, and cross country specifically, is there's only one winner, and there's a whole heck of a lot of individuals competing. Whereas in a team sport, yes, again, there's only one winner, but it's half the people on the court just won, and half the people on the court just lost. And in track, there's one winner and a whole bunch of losers. And so I think maybe that's why I did like it so much. Is I am such a hyper competitive person that this idea that it's one or nothing, it's first or last kind of a mentality kind of appealed to me. And so I spent, a couple of years doing club track and running decently. But unfortunately, after a few years, the investment of time, I have a couple siblings. Right. It was quite a trek to get out there.
Gotcha.
It just wasn't possible for me to keep it up and for my parents to support that. So I actually then took a break from running for a few years until I made it to high school. And then once you get to high school, you can join the high school
You can join a team and stuff like
and
this.
Exactly. And at that point, everything's
that's
localized.
Much more common in the US than it is, at least in the Netherlands.
Is it not a common thing out in Europe?
High school teams are not a very common thing at all, no.
What?
Yeah, no, like you have like local clubs you join, like in the city you play. Yeah, that's basically what happens, yeah. But talking about, because you mentioned, right, what you loved about running is like you're super competitive, so you could be the winner. But the act itself is like, you're still not sure if you actually loved it. But was that something that you did like more in soccer or football then? Like, because you're a team and, I imagine you being like you're a pretty sociable person as well. So you like hang out with friends and
yeah. The nice thing about running is you always run with a group. At least when you're running for a sport, right? Like if you're running for fitness, lots of people, they go out, on their morning run and they're running alone,
right?
Just to get some just to get some exercise in. But when it comes to track and cross country as a sport, cross country is actually a team sport. So if we want to get into the nitty gritty of it, I should retract my earlier statement in saying that it's an individual thing. Track is a little bit more an individual thing, although you still compete with a team score,
right?
So again, each individual is getting awarded points based on their placement, And then one team does win the entire meet, quote unquote, at the end of it all, based on points. In cross country, similarly, you get a point, based on where you finish in the race. And then the top X number of runners on your team score. And so you add up all those, and the lowest score wins,
right?
Because you want better placement. And so in that regard, it is a team sport, and you actually do train together. So as much as you kind of race a little more individually, every day you're in a pack of guys, 10, 12 guys deep out there trekking along the street, for miles and minutes at a time. And so I still got a lot of it. You are right in identifying that I'm a very social person. And so again, I think that was another thing that appealed to me, part of why acting appealed to me as well. Being around people, getting to work towards a common goal, I think is always something that appeals to me. And so running was very much the same way. You actually do, I think, get that sense. And in fact, more so than I think in other sports, when you're training and running, you've got nothing to do except run and talk.
Right.
So that's what you do
with each other while running.
That's what you do. You talk the whole time you're on the run. I mean, and people all the time, people say this is wild to me. They're like, I can't even imagine talking while running. No, 2-hour runs. We're talking the whole time,
Wow.
like it's what you get used to. Right. And it's, I love that aspect of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to paint this picture of like me hating life every time I'm running. No, running is just painful. It just gets hard, right. But I loved it. And I loved being around my teammates. I loved taking, having that opportunity to let the rest of the world fade away. Even though I was in college, I'm running through the streets of New York. The world is still very much present around me, but there's something really freeing about, just moving from point A to point B.
Right.
With another group of people. So a very simple act.
Right.
It's not a complex act. It's just one foot in front of the other. Pump the arms. Keep moving.
Yeah.
And yet there's something so rewarding about when you complete, the activity, or the fact that you're enduring that, with this other group of people.
Right.
And everybody's got their good and their bad days. And there are days when I'm the guy at the back of the pack, and my buddies, they're the ones having to say, hey, come on, James, pick it up. Let's go. And then there are days when I'm in the front and I'm trying to encourage somebody else in the back. Like, hang on, dude, hang on. We only got one more mile. Let's go.
But the way you described it, like, it gave you an opportunity to maybe kind of get in that kind of zone and just go running and with the group. It sounds almost like it had something, I don't want to necessarily say therapeutic, but just maybe an escape, be completely with yourself and maybe the people you're running with. Is that the aspect that just appealed to you in continuing to doing it from maybe a more social, personal health aspect?
I think that I would say if I had to identify why it is that I ran as much as I did and for as long as I did in terms of my running career, it was all about competition. Like that was the main driving factor. Right. I like to compete. I like to win at things.
And you were good, so you kept doing it. Right.
I was good. Definitely. I was good. Like that is one of those areas where I am comfortable saying I was a very solid runner. Was I top of the world? Absolutely not. Otherwise I would be an Olympic level runner and not a host. But definitely in my younger years, I was pretty quick. I mean, candidly, here in California, as a junior in high school, right? So third year in high school, I missed qualifying for states by 0.01 seconds. Crossed the line actually at the same time as somebody else, and in the photo finish they gave it to the other guy.
Yep.
It does sting, but everybody that I lost to in that race was a senior, so they were 1 year above me and going to graduate that next year. And I had put up a very respectable time, for a junior at that moment. And in fact, that race was what kind of started a whole bunch of college recruitment for me. Where all of a sudden these universities were reaching out because of the time that I had run and whatnot. And so that was, just to put a little color to the fact that, I was pretty good,
Right.
unfortunately, yeah, no, I never got to the level of absurd competition. You know, I made it to nationals in college once and made All-American, which was very cool, running the DMR, a relay with 3 of my teammates. So I had my fair share of like moments in the spotlight or competing for, something of value, quote unquote value. But yeah, I think for me, it's always about doing something that I feel I have, that I'm great at,
Right.
and that I can truly compete. And so, yeah, the drive I think more came from wanting to race. I wanted to race.
You're also a person who enjoys being in the spotlight, which is obviously what we touched on in the acting thing, and why you're now a host, doing many gigs. Did you ever aspire to be the USA champion and going to the Olympics? Where you're like, oh wow, I see. Like at the time, I'm not familiar with the good runners
Yeah.
I'm not too well known, but like Gay or Bolt, like would you be like, would you have the dream of being there?
Those are a couple of good names to drop. They're sprinters.
You were long distance.
A little bit. I was a mid to long distance runner. So like impressive runners to say the least, and definitely motivating to watch them run. I can't remember if we talked about this last time around. Did we? I feel like we touched on running like just for real briefly. I don't know if I dropped this name. So for those of you who are watching this, when this video is over, wait till it's over. I want you to go into the YouTube search bar, and I want you to Google Dave Waddle Olympic 800 meters.
Yeah, you didn't mention this.
Okay, Dave Waddle, DAVE, and then Waddle, WOTTLE. Dave Waddle. Go watch this man run the Olympic finals in Germany for the 800. He is a U.S. runner running my race. So that's why I want you to go watch this. I ran the 800, which is a half mile. I ran a few other races as well. That was my primary distance, though. Watching him run is one of the most fascinating things in the world. He runs in a way that very few people are capable of running, where he runs negative splits at the highest level. Negative splits, meaning you run your first lap on the track, and then you run your second one faster. So in terms of time, you are running a negative split. Right. That's very uncommon at the highest levels. It's fairly common in high school. Fairly. Again, I still think it's less common. But the reason I bring this up is my dad, I think, if I recall correctly, who exposed me to was a big part of my acting career, and we talked about last time. Took great interest in my running career. Actually, both of my parents did. My mother is a runner, and we'll get to her side of the family because it ties into some of the aspirations. But first, I'll start with my dad. My dad had told me, I think, about Dave Waddle and this Olympic run. And it was kind of about the time, I think, freshman, sophomore year, where I had hit a wall. And I was really trying to break a specific time. There are certain barriers in track and field that it feels like everybody seems to hit, which is breaking 5 minutes for the very first time in the mile. Usually in high school, that's a pretty big milestone when you sneak under that 5 minute mark, and then you're trying to push yourself down towards the 4 minute mark. Similarly, in the 800, breaking 2 minutes for a half a mile is a pretty big barrier. And so the first time I was ever trying to break 2, I was really struggling. I was hitting like 201, 201.
Oh yeah.
Two flat 0.5, 2 flat 0.2, like just barely. I just couldn't hit it. it. And my dad at one point said, well, check out this guy, Dave Waddle, and how he ran the 800. You should consider different strategies. You should consider, as a young runner, that maybe you haven't figured out the best way to run yet, and that you need to do some experimenting. And watching Dave Waddle run these absurd negative splits gave me, kind of a different framing as a young runner of how to approach a race. And I'm not much of a negative split runner, even after all of that, but it did change. It changed my mindset and my approach. And there were a number of times that I did run negative splits in high school specifically to improve times. Later in my career, I went back towards positive splits. It's just kind of the nature of it. When you're running at the absolute highest levels and you're pushing for very minimal, ticks off of your PR,
right?
It's generally you got to go out hard and try and hold on,
right?
You can't so much make up that time in a negative split.
You just need to maximize that specifically.
So I would eventually go back to more of those positive splits, but anyway, this is all to say that's like kind of a tangential thing, but I definitely did have some considerations in my younger years of like, oh, am I good enough to do this, at the highest level? Could I possibly go to the Olympics? I later learned, but kind of by the end of high school, well, if you're not hitting specific times, you're not competing for the national championship in high school, it's fairly unlikely, not impossible, right? You dedicate the time, you dedicate the resources, and I definitely didn't. Again, I did run in college and everything, but I was not full steam ahead on it anymore. Acting was my priority over running. So I think at a certain point in high school, I realized I didn't hit like the 153 mark. I hit 156. I'm just throwing numbers at you, which probably don't mean anything, but any runners who are watching this video, it's going to make a little bit of sense to them. Where I just like didn't hit, certain benchmarks that would necessarily speak to, oh, this guy has what it takes to maybe make the US team. They can tell you
like, oh, wow, these are real prodigies, those.
Exactly. And so that's on the dad side. Now I'll get to the mom side, because mom side is kind of interesting here, because I think the piece that was motivating for me to maybe try and go for it is the fact that my mom's brother, my uncle, did go to the Olympic trials twice.
Oh, wow.
For the marathon. So he ran even longer distances than me. But after running in college, he went to medical school. And in the process of becoming a doctor, he also continued his running career and managed to post some pretty incredible marathon times that qualified him for the Olympic trials 2 separate times. Now, he didn't end up finishing top 3, because that's it. Hundreds of runners qualify into the marathon, and then the top 3 are the ones who go and represent the U.S. So unfortunately, he wasn't able to squeak through. But hearing all of his stories and having references for all of his times in the different distances, more so than wanting to become a professional runner, it was always a goal of mine that I would beat all of his times.
Right.
Just because in my head, I was like, well, familially, okay, somebody in my family is capable of doing this. I think there's a certain amount of empowerment that comes from that, knowing that, okay, I'm derivative of that, okay, if he can do it, it makes it feel that much more likely that I can do it. And so, I wrote down all of his times, and he and I would talk about running every single time, the families would get together and stuff. And that was super motivating. And maybe for a period of time, knowing what he was able to achieve, I think I as well had some desire of like, ooh, that would be pretty cool if I could make it to the Olympic trials and maybe outdo him that time around. I did not make it to the Olympic trials.
But you say like, whenever we would meet up, we would talk about running. Now, to me, if I would to talk about my running to somebody else, I'd be like, yeah, I ran this fast. Okay. I don't know how much depth is there. How much depth is there? Like, what can you talk about? Like, when you're talking to each other about running, is it about technique? Is it something?
All kinds of stuff. Yeah. You can definitely talk about technique, although talking about running technique is a little more difficult. Okay. I mean, and especially, well, just because until you see somebody run, like the mechanics of running, everyone understands the mechanics of running, right? In terms of their basics, although you'd be fascinated. Like when I'm walking around outside and I see runners go past me, it can be pretty painful.
I mean, yeah, like
you're watching somebody just run in an incredibly inefficient fashion,
right?
And you're like, oh my God, can I please just help you? Drop your arms and your shoulders, put them in a 90 degree.
Yeah, because they're going to be very tense and their muscles are going to be very strained by the way they run. Yes.
Yeah, so there could be some discussion around technique, but no, largely it's more about recent experiences running. The improvement that you're making, different maybe tactics that you're trying in order for to reach that kind of improvement. Training schedules for running are very interesting. It is a year-round thing. You know, you don't take breaks when you as a runner. Whereas in other sports, you will have off seasons where you largely don't do anything super, you know, maybe you're weight training and things like that, but you're not practicing the technique. The only way to practice running is to go running. You know, like you just have to keep doing it. And so running near 7 days a week, 365 days a year is definitely a common thing. And so a lot of when I would talk to him, it'd be about, hey, my most recent races, how they went, you know, what I was feeling, what were the splits looking like, where was the breakdown mentally, you know, how was I doing at different points of the races, where am I finding difficulty? I'm finding difficulty in my hill climbing. For some reason, that's where I'm really, you know, like I'm losing a lot of time. And then even once I crest the hill, it feels like that hill's taken all of my energy out of me and I never find my rhythm again. So maybe we talk about what are some techniques that you can use immediately after you crest a hill to find that rhythm and that turnover again in your legs to get back up to speed. Maybe we're talking, maybe we're just talking about a recent race and walking through it. I mean, again, I think for the layman, for somebody who isn't a runner, all you'd be hearing is, okay, the gun went off, you started running, and then you ran until you crossed the line, and then it was over, right? But from our perspective, it would be like, all right, what position were you in? You know, if we're talking track and we're talking 800 and we start, you know, on the waterfall, okay, I was starting on the outside, which means versus the guy in lane 1 starting on the inside. There's different approaches to how you're going to collapse in on the, you know, on the inner side of the track. And so, okay, I was on the outside. I decided to go out hard, lead the race. So that way I wouldn't, you know, run into any traffic after the first 100 meters and I slide into lane 1. But once we came into lane 1, I wanted to drop back. I'm a runner who does not like to lead races. I like to sit in second, third place until that final kick and then turn it on and look to beat people in the final stretch. There are plenty of runners, though, who are, you know, start to finish, you know, out in front, and that's their goal. They're looking to tire out the field, you know, and beat you in a strength battle, you know, an endurance battle at the end, just when everybody's struggling. But for me, it was always about finding kind of good, solid positioning. Part of that was learned from Dave Waddle. As a kid, I was not that way. As a kid, I was out the gate,
just bursting, just running
first, and I either win it or I die and get last. Like that was how I ran as a kid. And watching Dave Waddle run, watching somebody at the Olympic level be okay off the start, going all the way to last. He was in last by a mile. You'll go watch this race, and then I want to hear what you think about that.
I will
afterwards, because it's nutty.
Okay.
Watching somebody at such an elite level be okay, putting themselves at that deficit with the understanding that their strength in running came later in the race was a really empowering thing for a young runner. It was a really empowering mindset to understand that, okay, it doesn't matter who's in first halfway through the race. Doesn't matter who's in first 98% of the way through the race. It only matters who's in first at the very, very end. And so that's kind of the way that I, you know, had trained to run. But back to your question around how do you talk about running? Yeah, there's some conversation around technique, although very little. There's more conversation around what does your training currently look like? Where are you at in your training? You know, so much of running is about ramping, you know, start of the season, it's all about putting on mileage. So your concern is not your pace. It's not your speed or anything like that. It's about how many miles have you put on your legs, and you're trying to build out what's called your base. So every day you're trying to put more and more mileage on your legs. And then at a certain point in the season, you start introducing speed training. So that's where you're doing interval work or track workouts. You're doing tempo runs and things like that to try and inject a little bit of speed and a change of pace into what is this incredible base and, you know, and strength that you've built. And then as you get further into the season near the end, that's where you actually start bringing mileage back down because you're looking to do what's called peaking, right? So your goal is always to peak at exactly the right time. If we're talking national championship, you know, like for running, that's when you want to peak. You want to be peaking the week or two beforehand so that you're running a fast time to qualify, and then you're running your fastest time on the week for nationals. So you bring your mileage way down so that your muscles have more time to recuperate, and you increase the speed. It's also the difference between fast and slow twitch muscles. How are you working each of these out? What does your strength training look like in terms of weightlifting and ab workouts? Because if you're going to do more powerlifting, for example, sprinters do a heck of a lot more powerlifting than distance runners do.
You can see in their build, they're far more muscular, and long distance
Exactly.
runners
For
are
them,
very lean.
acceleration is what matters if you're running short distance. If I'm running 100 meters, it doesn't honestly really matter what my top speed is. I mean, it does, but it doesn't matter as much what your actual top speed is. It matters how quickly you can get to it, because by the time you get to it, the race is already over. Like most 100-meter runners are only reaching top speed 50 to 70 meters into the race. And then the last 30, they're at top speed. But that acceleration is what matters for shorter distance runners. For longer distance runners, it doesn't necessarily matter how quickly I get to top speed, because everyone's going to do that, in the first 50 meters. Okay, so we've all ran 50 meters and we're all operating at top speed. we still have way more of the race to go. So what matters more in distance running is your strength, endurance, pacing, things like that, and your strategy ultimately. And so, there's a fair amount to talk about, but I think it's only interesting to runners. Right. Like to your point, anyone else.
I was just interested in because as I said, right, I understand that it's obviously my knowledge is surface level, and most people who watch an Olympics, it's surface level. They see people run and they understand, okay, this guy's in first place, so they're doing a good job. In that sense, it's very accessible, but I just wondering how deep this can go, like how deep this sport is in terms of strategy as well, and just this training is such a big part of that strategy, and developing yourself.
I mean, I'm not going to try and kid anyone into thinking that running is more strategically complex than other sports like that. That's and
let's be, but not as linear as people would maybe presume.
Exactly. And I think the thing about running is that your strategy is so much more personal,
right?
Again, even though you are running as a team and you're scored as a team, everybody's approach to that is going to be a little different. Whereas in so many other team sports, everyone's approach has to be the same. In terms of if you're on the same team, we all need to be on the same page. We all need to be aware of this is the team's strategy to win this football game or to win this basketball game. In running, we're all working for the same goal as a team, but the way we go about getting there is going to be a little bit different. Again, teammate one is always happy to sit back, and then finish strong. Whereas these two other guys, they like to go out hard as a pair and try and push each other and hold on to the finish. And that was a little bit more me, right? Like I like to be towards the front of the race, not leading the race and trying to hold on. But that meant there were a number of events, a number of times where I go out too hard, right? And I misjudge that ability, and I'm really losing pace, near the end of the run. Or similarly, there are the people who go out slow and expect to finish strong, and they miscalculate and they don't turn it on quick enough near the end.
Right.
And now they've got so much leftover juice, but they finished the race and it was all for naught, right? So again, everybody's strategy is going to be unique, a little bit more unique to them, I think, in running. But there's still an amount of strategic depth. But I'm not going to try and
No, it's fine. It's fine.
It's more than other sports.
Yes. Now what you still speak so passionately about it as you did when we spoke about acting. But it's obviously you're busy with a lot of other things now, so I cannot imagine you having any time left for team running or anything like this. But do you maybe you do still go out for runs, but do you also keep an eye on professional running? Are you still in touch with the people you ran with on a team? So
my best friends from college are my fellow cross country teammates.
Right.
Now, most of them are still on the East Coast, although over the last few years, we've started to disperse a little bit, but I ran in New York. And so most of them stuck around in that area, and I will get to see them every time I go out there, which has been fantastic. One of the things I do love about that group of guys is that if any of us swing through each other's city, it's a quick text to grab a beer, hang out, anything like that. But I don't run anymore. So what we haven't gotten into is the fact that after completing my running career at NYU, I did start entertaining the idea of running half marathons and marathons, following in the footsteps of my uncle. And after running one marathon and a half marathon out in New York, moved here to LA. I trained up to run the LA marathon, ran the LA marathon, and immediately in the months following the LA marathon, I started to develop some pretty serious pain in my right foot. And over the next year or two, this was back in like, I want to say 2015, give or take a year. After exploring it with the doctor, we found that I was growing bone spurs in my foot. And so I had to get some surgery done on my foot in order to get those removed and to have my toe kind of screwed back onto my foot. But unfortunately, that ended my running career.
Oh man, that's so sad.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer. The hope was that the surgery was going to get me back to a state where I could run.
Right.
The surgery was not as great as the doctor is and as great a job as he did. It just unfortunately my body went right back into the same defensive mode, and it rebuilt the bone spurs. So at this point, we don't really have a solution to get rid of them, and it's very painful for me to run. Actually, it's very painful for me to even stand.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, this was like a big thing a few years ago. I mean, big thing, I say, like at events, standing behind the desk was very like for a long period of time became difficult. Yeah. And actually, it's where people like to at events every once in a while, someone will take a picture of me, and they'll see that I'm not wearing shoes.
Oh,
I'm just wearing socks.
Yeah, because it's more
when I'm
comfortable.
in the arenas, exactly. Because wearing like dress shoes actually is very painful. I will do it if I'm in a situation where my shoes are going to be seen. But when I get to stand behind a desk, I have a squishy mat that helps a little bit, and then I just wear socks a lot of times.
But
so that's a pretty funny thing. But
yeah, but that must have been like really, like, I imagine like
depressing.
Yeah, depressing, because to briefly touch upon myself, I used to play football a lot, soccer, for our US viewers, and I dislocated my knee, so I couldn't play for like half a year at least. But that healed perfectly fine, so I could play again. And then,
good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, 2 years later, I dislocated
my.
Yeah, well, 2 years later, I dislocated my other knee, and that didn't heal as well, so I can't play football anymore.
All right. Well, so then you feel my pain quite literally.
I didn't play it as competitively as you.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah,
that's irrelevant.
Obviously,
sport is sport. You know, we all do it for similar reasons.
It absolutely is. So, but for you, because it was also such a big part of your life, what did it do to you to realize? Well, to say it dramatically, I will never run again.
I think I'm still trying to figure that out. I think I'm still trying to solve that. Without a doubt, I have had ups and downs, and like, you know, I'm not a therapist, but like depressive episodes. Like I go into little funks, you know, where I really wish I had that as an outlet. Fitness and health is a very important thing to me, but my main outlet for fitness and health is no longer available to me. And that has been a struggle. I don't enjoy going to the gym like a lot of people enjoy going to the gym. You know, I've had my different kind of spurts of doing that. I don't derive the same level of enjoyment out of seeing progress in lifting as I did in seeing progress in my running and watching those times come down and feeling like there was a certain confidence, as I think when you get good at anything, right? You know, be it playing an instrument, mastering a language, or, you know, a subject in school, or a sport, or, you know, when you start to master a skill, there's a lot of confidence that comes with it. And there's a lot of attachment in personal identity. And so for so long, I could claim myself to be a runner. And even nowadays, I don't know. I can't call myself a runner anymore. Like I won't call myself a runner anymore. I haven't run in 4 years, you know, which is wild for how big a piece of my life running has always been. So yeah, it's definitely been hard. It's definitely been hard, and I've had my ups and downs. Now the outlet that I have found is biking. Because biking puts a lot less pressure on the foot. My toe, my right foot will still hurt after a solid, hour, 2 or 3 hour bike ride. Just because of kind of that, just the constant pressure, but the act of not rolling off the foot, right? When you're running, you're rolling off the front of the foot. When you're biking, it's just this, right? So the foot is not folding. It's just pushing the pedal. So it's a little bit more, it's easier to endure, I should say. And biking, I love. It's also a lot better for your knees. So, the
I know.
older James.
My physiotherapist actually recommended me picking up biking. Yeah.
You should. I mean, biking is an incredible.
I need a bike first. I'm Dutch. I'm Dutch, so like my fellow Dutch people will probably be like shocked that I don't have a bike because Dutch people.
I was about to say, I was like, isn't that a common thing?
Yeah, well, we're almost obliged by law to have one, but I don't have one here yet because I moved to Berlin recently. So,
well, if you need help picking one out, I got you. But yeah, actually, again, my dad is the reason that I transitioned into biking, because in his adulthood, that was kind of his choice when he was looking to get back into, health and fitness. For a while, he went to the gym and did swimming. And then at some point, and honestly, I don't even really know. I'll have to ask him. I'm going to see him this week. Why exactly it was that he turned to biking. But at some point, he made that transition.
Right.
And that was very interesting to me. Even while I was still running, I would go on bike rides with him. We're talking, he went and spent, to get these really nice road bikes. And there was just some fun in that, when you start getting into the more complex road bikes that, they change the way you feel. It's very interesting. Yeah, I think so. Basically, he turns me on to it because there's still aspects of biking that remind me of running. Again, it's that endurance based. You're getting from point A to point B. It's kind of a personal, individual challenge, of overcoming your own misgivings, your own mentality, right? So much of running and biking of these kinds of sports is just, at some point you're going to hit the wall. At some point your body is going to say, hey, can we please stop? I'm tired. And your brain has to say no. You have to say absolutely not. We're going to keep going. You have more in you. And so I still get that aspect when I'm on the bike, which is nice. The only difficulty or the only problem with biking is that biking, I would say you have to do 3x whatever you were going to do in running.
Yes, you have to cover
on the bike
a bit more
to get the same effect. So the problem with it is the time investment. If normally I would go out for an hour-long run, I'm going out every day for an hour. Now I need to go out and bike 3 hours to get the same caloric deficit, to get the same kind of cardiovascular effect, things like that. And so it's a big time sink, and that's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to find 3 hours in a day. And so it becomes a little bit of a process, and it can be cumbersome. And so there are definitely still times when I'm like, God, I wish I could just strap on the running shoes and walk out the door. Like, it's so much easier to throw on a pair of shorts and the shoes and get out, as opposed to clip on the cleats, get the bike, all the accoutrement. Let's pump up. You got to make sure that all the tires are good in terms of pressure. We've got our whole kit in case the tires pop, which happens all the time. It happens so much more than anybody tells you. When you first start biking, you're like, oh, it'll never happen, because you bike as a kid and your tires never pop, right?
Yeah.
And then you get on a road bike. Well, rarely, right?
Yes.
And then you get on a road bike where the tires are this thin. And they've got, and crazy pressure, hard as rock, crazy pressure. And you hit one little bump and you start fishtailing. You're like, oh my goodness. So now I got to sit here for 20 minutes and repair a tire on the side of the road looking like a dummy. It's an experience. No, but I love biking. It's a lot of fun. And you get some of the similar things that you get out of running. So I've been lucky to have that.
Yes.
But trust me when I say I still wish I could be right. I wish.
Of course,
I was
yeah. Like, you may find a new love, but you will always hold dear what you did originally, right? Absolutely. a question I asked last time around as well, but obviously then it pertained to acting, is what lessons have you learned about yourself, or maybe think like, like to call them big life lessons or something, but from running, what has it brought you that to this day you carry with you and can apply?
Well, the first thing that popped into my brain when you said that was that I'm capable of more than I think. Again, it ties back into that mentality point, right? Where so much of running is about overcoming your own mental demons.
Yes.
That little voice that tells you you've hit your wall. You're not going to win this one. Just give up, just slow down. Your body hurts. Why are you doing this to yourself? That the psychology of it. Like, I think it in a good way, it helped me build mental callous.
Right.
I was not aware of this philosophy at the, when it was all happening, but in more recent years, I've been exposed to David Goggins. I don't know if you know who David Goggins is.
I'm not familiar now.
Another great person that I would look up. I would recommend you go read his book. He's got some great podcasts and things like that. But he's a former Navy SEAL. I don't want to misquote, but former Navy SEAL. I hope I got his service correct there. Who has competed in 100-mile, marathon races and things like ultra marathon races.
Right.
Wins them all, is just, he's like another level. He's like almost inhuman,
right?
In his physical
super
capability.
Soldier.
He has he's got the record. I think he's got the record for most pull-ups in a day.
Okay.
And it's something like, it's over 2,000. Can you imagine doing 2,000 pull-ups? Legitimate pull-ups?
Yeah, I can do. I mentioned like 2.
Right. I'm like, you know what? In my fit moments, I could maybe give you 20 over the course of a day. This guy did like over 2,000 in a day.
Yes.
It's wild. Okay, so this is just so you have a concept of who David Goggins is.
The type of person it is, yes.
So in a lot of his books, or the way he speaks about things, it's about building mental callous. Throughout your life, you need to put yourself in situations of overcoming obstacles because it builds on itself, right?
Right.
Once you put that, once you challenge yourself and you overcome the obstacle, you store that in your brain. And I forget how exactly he phrases it, but it's something like literally you're putting a cookie in the cookie jar.
Yes.
Right. So every time you overcome something, you're putting a cookie in the mental cookie jar, so that later on, when you run into something that's truly difficult and truly challenging, instead of giving up, what you pull from is that mental cookie jar, and you give yourself a cookie, right? In remembering all the times that you have pushed yourself past the limit.
Do it. Yes.
You remind yourself, hey, remember that last time you thought that was as far as you could go and you went a little bit further? This is the same thing.
Right.
So let's go a little bit further.
So,
and then when the sustenance of that cookie runs out and you're thinking the negative thoughts again, you reach for another cookie, right? And it's this idea of callousing your mind is what he says. You build a mental callus towards these situations that would normally wear on you.
Right.
I did not understand the philosophy in those words at the time, but I think that was something I 100% gained from running. Is it's just you out there,
right? It's
you against yourself.
So, and in the end, it's you. Like, you have to walk the path you want to walk, right? Nobody else can do that for you. But when you say like push yourself past limits and past barriers, how does this apply to you on camera, or you doing the hosting that you do? Like, how do you find an application for this now? What have been obstacles you had to push through?
Oof. Well, so what I think is interesting is I think the framing changes, but it's the same concept, right? So when we're talking about sport and talking about running, it is in a lot of cases, it's a physical, barrier. Or again, you hit this wall, you go, I'm tired.
Yes.
And I want to keep going. But that original phrasing I used in answering your question, saying, I think I learned that I'm capable of more than I think I am. I think it changed my approach. And in some ways is probably the reason why I'm doing the job I am today. you'll remember from our last conversation, my intention was never to be a live broadcast host, and in particular, never to be a live broadcast host for esports. I was a gamer. I was aware of esports' existence. I was even watching and a fan of, League of Legends esports well before I had the opportunity to join Riot. But I had never considered it as a career path. I was very singularly focused on making it as an actor. But this idea that I am capable of more than I think I am, when that opportunity was afforded to me, I think because of that mentality, I was willing to give it a second thought. I was willing to entertain the idea for just long enough to then ultimately say, okay, let's give this a shot.
Let's give it a go.
But I think if I don't necessarily have that mentality, maybe someone says, hey, have you thought about, live broadcast hosting? I would have been like, I can't do that. I've never done that in my life. And I hadn't. I had zero live broadcast experience the first time I stepped on stage for Riot. But this idea that, I'm not going to be good the first time I do it, but I am capable of more than I think I am. And if I allow myself to be put in a scary situation, in a position to fail, and fail I have many, many times on air, it's the only way to get better. And ultimately, I think I am capable of getting better. And so that's one kind of mindset that I think I have developed where I'm a little bit more willing to put myself in an uncomfortable or unfamiliar situation with the trust that I will learn, that I will figure it out, and that I will improve and rise to the occasion.
What's in your
that's one thing.
Yeah. What's in your mental cookie jar for being on camera?
Oh, Lord. Well, I mean, so you're talking about what cookies have I gotten from being on air?
Yeah, because you said obviously you have to push past barriers.
Well, most of those are going to come from aspects of the broadcast that quote unquote fail, right? And those moments of having to overcome and adjust in the moment. And so it's going to be hard to call out a ton of very specific ones.
Okay.
Because most of the time, the audience, if we do it well, is unaware of the screw up.
Right.
Right. Like something maybe technically broke behind the scenes or the prompter goes black. But as long as I ad lib or, a graphic doesn't roll or there's a pause, right? And a pause, okay, that's an obvious technical flub. But then that whole time, so I would say probably a number of the pauses that I've had to sit through. I think I've had a couple hour-long pauses in my career. Nothing like the season 2 Worlds 8-hour pause, but I've had a couple hour-long pauses in my career where we're on the desk the entire time, and it's very much, with little to no information. We're just trying to keep people entertained and push through it and keep finding new things to talk about. That for sure, those go into the mental cookie jar. Because now anytime there is a pause, I know we can do it. We've done it before, right? So that's definitely a piece of it. I mean, my very first world championship is in there, but a lot of that is just from the perspective of, again, doing something I never thought I could have done before. And once I've done it for the first time, boom, there it goes, So now I don't give a second thought so much to hosting worlds. I definitely still get some nerves. I get some butterflies right before we go live.
Right, but it's your nature now.
But exactly. I'm not sitting up there second guessing my ability.
No.
But back in 2015 Mercedes-Benz Arena, I was definitely standing there second guessing my ability, and rightfully so. I wasn't very good, but I was sitting there going, I don't know if I deserve this. I don't know if I'm right for, if they should have trusted me with this. And then we get through it and the show's great with still plenty of areas to improve. But the show, we survived. I survived. I got through the other side. Nobody had their pitchforks out. Okay, boom. That's a cookie, So there's a few of them out there for sure. I don't know if there are a ton that come specifically, again, specifically
but they've built up over time for you to
definitely
have this. Yeah. There's still moments where you need to take out a cookie.
Oh, absolutely. Well, maybe not so much, less so with this, right? Less so with hosting. But that's kind of my point is like now I've gotten myself to a place of comfortability in my profession where I'm pretty confident walking into most hosting situations, be it for league or be it for something else. But any new endeavors is where I might then look back on, hey, remember when you thought you couldn't host? And it turns out you could learn that skill. So the next time I want to pick up a new skill, or the next time I get thrust into an uncomfortable situation, I'm going to rely on, hey, remember all those other times you weren't sure if you could do this and you did rise to the occasion. Let's have that same level of trust in ourselves this time. Let's believe that we can do it. Let's go for it. So I think that's more what it is, like it snowballs.
Right.
And so I'm sure that there were aspects of running, that allowed me to become a host, and to commit to becoming a host. And there will be aspects of my hosting career that allow me to accomplish the next goal that I set for myself in life. So yeah, I mean, I think running also, so separate from this whole idea of being able to achieve more than you're capable of. I think the other thing that running did in a way that I think some sports, well, I shouldn't say this because I don't know. I didn't ever compete in another sport to the same level. But I think in some ways, because running is ultimately an individual thing, the ability to keep doing it beyond college was very important for me. And I think it is part of why I continued to maintain a level of health and fitness. Team sports are harder to do when you become an adult.
Yes, absolutely.
I think most people can attest to that, right? You get a job and all of a sudden it's like, well, where am I going to find time to find 10 other guys who want to play soccer or get out onto the basketball court and play a pickup game? It's very hard to do. Nice thing about running was it still gave me the avenues to take care of myself. And taking care of yourself and your body is far more important than anyone realizes at a young age.
It is very important, especially, well, I think anybody has been faced with it more than ever this year when, everybody is locked up in their houses and they're stuck with themselves and they have to take care of themselves because they don't have this social connection that they can relate to, or like maybe, free their minds in, So as that
I think there's this sense there, or there's this aspect of it. I feel like I benefited in understanding that I could be a little bit more self-sufficient. So again, I'm capable of more than I think, but then also just like on a physical level, taking care of myself to that degree and knowing, I say this to people sometimes where it's like, I want to believe and I hope that if the apocalypse were to hit, I am, physically fit enough to survive, right? And to help other people.
Right.
You'd be surprised, right? Could you carry another human for a mile?
Me?
Yes, could you? I can't. Not right now.
No,
I'm happy to admit that right now I would not be capable of doing that. Up until that point where I had foot surgery, though, I'm very confident that I could have. I could have thrown a human over my shoulder and I could have traveled a mile.
Well,
not
it
necessarily
depends on
super
how big
fast.
the human is, like a baby.
Sure, we're talking
yes.
we're talking within the realm of reasonability.
No,
exactly.
Yeah,
You're right.
I could not carry an adult for a mile. No.
But I think that that's something that, like, not that I'm worried the apocalypse is going to hit, but there is this sense of pride.
Don't jinx it. It's 2020.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're right. There is this sense of pride, and a sense of empowerment that comes from knowing that you can handle yourself physically in any situation that presents itself. If somebody decided they wanted to fight or assault me, like, I wasn't looking to fight back, but I knew I could outrun anyone.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, I knew there is something very empowering about knowing that, hey, in any physical situation that arises, I am the master of what happens to me. I can choose to disengage, and I'm faster than you. You are not going to catch me. I will get out of the situation if I want. There's empowerment in knowing that if a friend needs help or somebody's in need, if I'm out on a hike and I pass by somebody who sprained their ankle and they're stranded, I can help them. I think there's something to be said for that. Both the confidence that it gives you as a person, and beyond that, then just like, it just feels good, right? It just feels good to know that you're capable, is I guess what I'm getting at. And that's very empowering. It's very empowering.
Yeah, the way you speak about it, it sounds, you know.
I'm not speaking very articulately
No, but
about it at the moment, but
I understand the situation when it's like you can think of yourself and realize I am happy with who I am, and in this case, mostly maybe in a physical sense. You know, I'm confident about myself, and that's an important thing to be.
Well, and then as you mentioned the physical, I should also say though, I mean, again, running is an incredibly mental sport, more so than most others. Like, yes, it comes down to one single physical action and just the repetition of that action, but more so than other sports where, you know, you're looking at strategy and you have moments, you have inflection points, you have moments of high action and moments of rest. In running, there are no moments of rest. It's race starts to race finish. And so the mental aspect of running, the overcoming, you know, your own body's desire to stop. Again, I think it built a kind of mental fortitude that I wouldn't have had if I wasn't a runner. But beyond that, the other thing I was going to say is that the act of running can be very therapeutic, right? So just, hey, you're having a bad day and you need to just go essentially meditate. I cannot sit in one place and meditate. Like I can't do it. I cannot sit on the floor for 20 minutes and not move. Doesn't make sense to me. It's never worked for me.
Yeah.
So my meditation is running,
own, you know.
Right? Yeah, exactly. If it works for you, fantastic.
Absolutely, yeah.
It does not work for me. I would rather be running with my thoughts, you know, because I can work kind of through those thoughts with my physicality. You know, if there's something that's weighing on me or, you know, if there's something that's weighing on me, I can go run it out of my system.
Right.
You know, I can go stew with it, while also kind of, you know, getting the juices flowing and the heart pumping and all of that.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, running is an incredible thing, on every level. I'm a little bummed that I can't do it anymore, but that's all right.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Dash. We've
been
talking for an hour already.
Have we really?
Yeah. I was kind of surprised as well.
I just screwed up your YouTube algorithm.
No. Well,
this video is going to be too long. You have to make it 3 parts.
No, my final, like, I think my last videos were the press conferences from World, so those are fairly long as well.
All right, then we're in the sweet spot.
Yeah, but this is once again been so inspiring to hear from your passion, like that's not related to League directly, but to still hear how it shaped you and how it basically feeds into League of Legends as well now.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for expressing interest in it.
No,
again, I'm sorry. I feel like I didn't do a phenomenal job in representing my actual thoughts on it. It's a hard thing to talk about.
Yeah, but
I wasn't expecting this.
I think,
it was a harder thing to talk about than I thought.
Well, we fleshed it out like pretty decently. We went through techniques, what you talk about, how you trained, how you got into it. So I think we covered all of it.
We covered the bases. Yeah, we totally did.
Yeah, and
I just don't know if I sold anyone on running. They probably listen to this and they're like, "My God, that guy is messed up." I'm not gonna go running. He's got a weird relationship with running.
Well,
no, I love it.
I'm inspired.
All right. That's awesome to hear.
All right. Well, then let's wrap it up. You inspired at least Haley. So that's a good thing.
That's a win.
Yeah, that's a win. Thank you again very much, Dash. I'm gonna think about something we're gonna talk about next year because I am gonna hit you up again next year. And
please do.
Yeah,
I love it.
We're gonna talk about something else. I'll think of something. But yeah, thank you.
You got a whole year
again.
to do it. Alrighty. Maybe next time I'll interview you, or I'll come with the topics prepared.
Oh,
who knows?
Wow. That would be an experience. I'm not sure if, you know, but what we would talk about then, but let's see. All right. Thank you very much, Dash.
Alrighty. My pleasure. Thank you.